Uncensored Radio Real Talk Roundtable. Real life, real laughs, real talk.
Hey Jeff, is this thing on?
Girl, I don't know, but you know what is on? Miss Sandy. Sandy's on. How exciting.
She is. Hello, Miss Sandy. How you going?
Hello.
It's been a long time since we've seen you today. Well, actually, only probably, a month? But, you know.
What's the countdown? What's the countdown? How long till you don't have to hide behind the picture anymore?
12 months.
Oh, my
12
gosh.
months.
Mm.
And then Sandy can be with us in spirit and in person.
Yes. And in flesh. Yes.
In the flesh. Well,
Excited.
we've been talking about lots of flesh, but we'll get to that later. So...
Oh.
Luna!
Luna Tuna. Look, Sandy, we want to talk about self-care today. So let's get started. Like, we've actually got some tips about it, but I guess I want to ask first, Jeff, what is your definition of self-care in your head?
Self-care would probably be all the things that I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my idea of self-care is getting a shower every day and playing music. Like, it's the only peace and quiet I get. Having 3 kids. So it's definitely something I'm not good at all. I never have been.
Look, my self-care regime is literally ordering food so I don't have to cook it and having extra long shower because that's my time out away. But then that doesn't work out because I get a kid in the room then. Like, Are you coming back? I'm like, oh, yes, I am.
One more person is like, what are you doing in there? Why are you in the bathroom for 40 minutes? Because it's the only peace and quiet I get.
Look, I think the first thing that jumps to mind for me around self-care, funnily enough, is the ability to say no to things, to people, to extra, requests and work and stuff. And I think when I hit a point where I feel like I'm overstressed or I'm overworking or I just need a bit more self-nurture, it's usually because I'm doing too much. So, it might be a no to that extra client that week, or it might be a no to, I'm not going to make dinner. I'm going to order in tonight, and just kind of trying to artfully, mindfully do a bit less, and allow myself to rest. So that's kind of the first thing that jumps to mind when I think self-care.
Yeah.
Other than that, just, looking after yourself. I think self-care for me is like caring for someone. It's like, if you can imagine, how would I look after someone else if they were unwell or they needed nurture? If someone was sick, what do you think of? I'll bring them nice food. I'll keep them warm, keep them company, and that's the kind of things I think we need to do for ourselves. Feed ourselves well, give ourselves some nourishment, maybe reach out to a friend, have a good conversation with someone about whatever. And that's, just kind of going within a bit more.
And I think it's the holistic approach too. I think a lot of people think of self-care as just, exercise or just one thing or the other, but it's really going inside, isn't it? Like looking after your mental health, looking after your physical health, and then also looking after, I guess, your relationships and your emotional connections.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. In some cases, if you're a very outward person or you're very engaged with people, then it might be about going in. But if you're the opposite and you're, for whatever reason, socially isolated, then self-care might be about reaching out, calling up a friend, talking to your, if your family is a nourishing environment, talking to them. If they're not, calling your chosen family, your friends, people that will love you and support you, whatever you're feeling, and pick up the phone rather than just sort of this online space that we have. And so I think it depends what you need. It could be at one or the other. But other little things, I think just giving myself permission to stop, to watch Netflix without feeling guilty, to cuddle my teddy and curl up with a hot wheat bag, if that's what my body needs or my brain needs. And just not feeling guilty about that.
I'm bad for that. I always feel like something I'm obligated to do it, and then I'll be getting stressed about it because I'll be like, oh gosh, like I've got this and this and this to do. Am I going to be able to squeeze that in? And I guess it's just having that insight just to say, well, stop and just say no.
And that's
Right.
it, that ability to say no. I think a lot of us are yes people, and we think that that's, I don't know, it's that people pleaser instinct. So being able to say no in a polite way that respects you and allows someone else to respect where you're at, just go, you know what, I just can't do that today. You know, let's do that next week, or let's do that tomorrow, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vera, what's your interpretation of self-care? Now, you're a nurse. I know you do shift work
We
stuff.
do a lot of different coursework classes at the clinic. This is Mental Health Awareness Month here at the in good old USA. And for our clinic, we've been giving out seedlings, little plants for everybody to take care of. And there's a whole gardening class on how
Elise
to
does
get
that
in
here.
touch, how to get in touch with the plant and the earth. And we do have a lot of really avid gardeners at the clinic. And we also have a yoga for anxiety class. And we encourage people, if you've never experienced nurturing, you don't know how to nurture anything, let alone yourself. So we do a lot of education on how to be a nurturer and how to care for other things and yourself,
Yeah. That's the thing too. Like, a lot of people think you're being a bit selfish or something. Oh, that's how I feel whenever I just want to do something for me. And it's not often I do things for me anymore. And I feel like I'm being a little bit selfish, but I think you have to in order to maintain yourself. Like, you can't be any good to anyone else if you're not your best self, right?
Well, I think Katie hit it right on the head. I think her first part of saying no and allowing yourself to say no is one of the hardest things ever. I find standing up for myself and putting my foot down in life was a lot easier than saying no to somebody. That's
I'm
a
just
tough
the
one.
opposite.
You're girl, I
I
know.
can't
She's
stand
like,
up for myself, but I'll stand up for you. but saying no, busy, can't do that. No, not interested, not going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, Sandy, can you give us a little rundown quickly of what self-care is?
Well, from a social work background, we would call it kind of, a basic kind of a attending to yourself. I mean, it's something that we all need to do on a regular basis. It's either a set of activities, it also sort of incorporates a mindset. And it's really bread and butter of what we do alongside clients, as we always sort of work out, self-care strategies and a way of meaningfully sort of being here in the world, and that's what our self-care does. It helps us position ourselves and to actually participate in our lives to our full and most, sort of potential, the most potential we can get from it. So that's kind of from a social work background. We're notoriously bad at practicing self-care, and we're usually burnt out. And, especially, you would understand, like, working in the health field.
I was going to say, do you think like health workers and parents as well, so it includes Jeff, like we put ourselves very much on the bottom of the list?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's that kind of servitude stuff that happens, that servitude discord and discourse rather. And we sort of put ourselves on the back burner. And I mean, there's that old saying, isn't it, that if we're not attending to ourselves, we really can't attend to those who are important to us as well, like, children and partners and parents and whoever else we have close connections with or caring roles. So yeah, it's really important. It's actually kind of the backbone of us getting on with our day. Absolutely.
Well, and it's kind of a newer concept, really, right? Because I don't know that in my childhood I ever saw an adult model self-care.
That's a great point, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's something that as a society we're recognizing more and more, the importance of having these practices in place so that, we feel good. And I like to use the example of our smartphones because self-care is so downplayed. It's dismissed a lot. It's forgotten. My upbringing is similar to yours, where I've got no idea what that concept was growing up. So, if we have our smartphones and we use them a lot and we've got a lot of different apps on them. So think about yourself and all the apps you've got going on in your life, and it's constantly going. And, when we just leave apps going, in the background as well, and we don't properly switch them off, and that stuff just keeps going, and it takes away, our energy and, I guess not just energy, but I guess our kind of zest for life in a way, like that little bit of kick that we have. And we always put our phones on the charger, right? We put them on, we recharge, and we're like, yeah, that battery's getting low. So, it's
I
really...
just did it now before this because I'm using my phone. I was like, oh, it's down to 70%. Better charge.
Oh, absolutely. It's not too dissimilar to our mind and body. And I think that we need to recharge and we need to think about our input and output. And that's something that a lot of us have grown up not seeing, even though if our parents or whoever our significant caregiver is, didn't have those kind of routines. Maybe they did. It just wasn't spoken about. Why was it stigmatized? Like, was it stigmatized? Is it because of the culture back then was, to be doing something like for yourself where what would you say?
I think definitely for women it was, because I think if you were a mother, you were not expected to things
it'd be selfish, wouldn't it? Yeah, it'd be considered selfish.
You were a
the
bad
word
mother.
I was chasing.
You're supposed to take care of kids, or you have a job, then you have to take care of your kids. Like, it's never like, when do you have time? Did you find that
during the 80s when when it became quite normalized for women to have a career and a family, that they were expected to do both, but often kind of wasn't? I know everyone's circumstances are different. It's different now. Like, look, Jeff, we raise kids on our own.
Yeah,
but I think even then, or even now, I mean, I still see men being like, oh, she doesn't have to work. She gets to stay at home with the kids all day. Bitch, you stay at home with the kids all day, and then let me know, because you're home all day with the kids. That is a job. That's a job.
Absolutely. This is it's often the unpaid, undervalued labor. It's labor. Like, that's labor. I mean, you love your kids and whatnot, but it is labor. And,
it's a 24/7 job. It doesn't end.
Yeah.
And you find too, like, this is sidetracking a bit from self-care, but these female-oriented professions and that women would go into, teaching, nursing, are very underpaid in contrast to other professions.
Oh, yeah. The gender pay gap is alive and well. I mean, we had a colleague a couple of months ago who said that, oh, you get the same award rate as me. And we're like, you know what? I might. But guess what? You don't have to do things like, if this is all by choice, by the way, everyone, but you don't do pregnancy, you don't do the actual childbirth, you don't do the first 6 months of a caring role, usually, for a child. I know your situation's, different to that.
Unique.
But it's unique. It's unique. But,
and Jeff had a little one too from day dot.
Yeah, and you guys would know that, through that lived experience as well, that,
there's no way I could have worked. There's no way I could have worked during that time. What are you
missing out on? You're missing out on superannuation entitlements. You're missing out on accruing leave. Then often, caregiving roles often usually fall with women, and they often look after their parents then, or other people's children, or, whatever. And that's where that gender pay gap comes into play. I mean, we start seeing, less opportunity, less ability to have and earn income. So, yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. I mean, look, when the boys came and I knew they were going to stay, and I was a single parent, I had to walk away from a career that at the time I was still building it. It was over $100,000 a year that I had to give up. It was either the career or children. I couldn't do both. No. There was no way. I tried to live in nanny. It didn't work. And I felt horrible the whole time, because something was always suffering. Either work was suffering or the kid. And it's so difficult. So then when it comes to, like, Luke's like, we're going to talk about self-care. And I'm like,
please don't. So what did you lose, Jeff? Like, you think about, you gain a lot, don't you? You've gone home, you're with your kids, and that's all wonderful and great. And, you gain so much. It's enriching as hell. But then we think about, what are the lost opportunities in your career? What are things that you've missed out on? Like, what would they look like?
And I think people don't really acknowledge, like, being a dad or being a mom. That's not enough. You still have to be who you are. And that's a really difficult thing to figure out when you're a single parent, especially when you have two kids that have multiple diagnoses. Like, it is a big challenge, and I wouldn't change anything, but it's definitely a struggle, you know? And I think people are afraid to admit that it is hard. It's not easy. And I definitely probably most days don't know who I am anymore, aside from being dad.
Yeah,
A
and
bit the
that's an
same.
identity stuff.
Yeah, like, you know, I sort of, it's, I guess it's a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow or to admit, is that you lose yourself a bit when you become a parent, because it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
And we sort of dedicate so much, and then you get, like, you know, well, what do I actually like to do, and what do I want to, you know, indulge in, and things like that. You actually forget, because you're so fixated on, you know, these little people that you need to bring up in this world, and you've got all the anxiety surrounding that too. You know, you don't want them to have a horrible time. You want them to be prepared for what's going to come. Like, all of that's always bubbling away as well. And I think it's, to self-care after all of that, it's something we put way back on the back burner.
Yeah.
If I remember to put my face creams on once a week, I'm excited, you know? Like, everybody's like, oh, you're fat? Just go work out. Yeah, when would you like me to do that? Me and the kids are going to go for a walk, but they're slow and they're veering off into bushes and shit. I can't, you know what I mean? It doesn't, it's not enjoyable. Like, it's not fun for me. It doesn't make it
work.
easy. Yeah, like, it's a chore. It's another chore.
Yeah.
So not only am I trying to get my fat ass out there and drag it so I can go lose a few pounds, but then I'm taking 3 kids with me, because other than that, then I got to hire somebody to watch them, which then tips them over. And it's you know, it's a battle. So again, like, I wouldn't change anything, but I definitely know that I'm not taking care of myself in a way that I should, and that too, I want them to know that it's okay to do that. I don't want them to have, like, the role model that I had, where it was your whole life is your kids. That, you know, my parents didn't have friends; they didn't go out. Like, we were their world. You know, they had family members they were close to, but they didn't have a social life. And I'm like, you know, I'm gonna need that a little bit.
And this is the first part, isn't it, to developing a self-care plan, is awareness. Self-awareness, I call this taking your pulse. You know, you sort of sit back and go, what is going on for me right now? This is how you can prioritize what needs to be a part of your self-care. And I mean, Jeff, you're speaking about, you're like, I would really like to engage in exercise, but there are barriers, very real barriers. Like, you know, I have kids who can make that a bit challenging for me. And I guess that comes back to, you know, thinking through what has worked sometimes in the past, what's worked in the past for you. Sometimes, you know, looking to resources that are around you. And that's something I think we discussed before the show was, I think, Luke, I discussed it with you around that action before motivation.
Yes, I actually did image for that.
Because it's one of those things. Lovely Tuna is,
She's part of the show now, okay?
Yep.
She's our mascot. And you know what? God love her, because I'm not convinced she is a woman. But, girl, get your money.
Jeffrey.
You know what? I think she's the epitome of action before motivation. If we...
Put the real photo on.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, I can't do that.
No.
That's terrible. Yeah. So Luna, someone who'll get it before she thinks about it.
Absolutely.
You know, shoot first, ask questions later. That's Luna.
Yeah. So, I mean, we look back at what self-care is, and I mean, there's so many elements to it, like those very basic physical ones around you. Like, Jeff, you mentioned having a shower is important, and it absolutely is. That is self-care. You know, that's a starting place. Let's put it that way. Like, it's a good starting point. All right, I'm having a shower every day. I'm kicking goals. That's great. You know, and then we look to our sleep and our eating and exercise, and, you know, you look at your physical space around you that your body is in, like your workspace, your bedroom, like what are those places like? And, you know, and then you can move into the emotional stuff around your relationships and boundaries. Boundaries is a big one.
We don't
can I
have relationships on this show.
Can we talk though about boundaries, the importance of boundaries and knowing, you know, if you don't want to do something, don't. If you do want to do something, do it. Like, you know, if you don't want to be friends with someone, you don't really gel with them.
Oh, Jeff, I think your boundaries are better than mine. Like we've all, you know, from day dot, I've been honest that I've got issues.
I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older. Before we even started having kids, probably since my late 20s, I had very long-term friendships that were, you know, at least in my teenage years, especially people that were gay or gay friendly, you know, that I kind of made as I was coming out. But getting closer to 30, I realized the relationships weren't that healthy. You know, it was kind of one-sided, and it was like, okay, these people need to go. So I got that down pretty well. You know, like, I mean, it's not a surprise. Like, secret. I don't talk to my parents. I don't talk to my siblings. It wasn't a healthy thing for me. And two, I didn't want my kids to see the dynamics of what I went through. And it just wasn't something I was going to continue. And so for me, like, that was a win. Like, I picked my mental health, and I wasn't going to put myself through any of that anymore.
Good for you.
They kind of call that a door slam, don't they, Sandy? Like,
yeah, and it's something we sometimes need to do.
Yeah. It took a long time to do it, and it was hard. It wasn't something easy to do.
Let's call it an informed choice, Jeff. Like you've taken some time to gather the evidence, you know, and you're like, look, I can tell now this is really not working for me. Yeah. You know, you've worked that out. You know, and that's something that I think only happens over time. Like you can't just do that quickly.
You know, and two, when I was going through the divorce, it was very much like, okay, I can't control anything he says or does or how he feels. The only thing I can control is me. So I needed to, you know, I started to focus on like, well, what didn't I do right in the marriage? What were my faults? How did I screw this up? Because that was the only thing I could grasp onto and have control of. So it was something I felt like I needed to do fully in my life. But now it's a little different because I have 3 little people who need me all the time. Yeah. And finding that balance is a challenge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sandy, I know we were going to talk about a self-care toolkit. So I think Jeff and I definitely need to work on one right now with you.
I know. I was thinking we should do it real time. We should like create one.
Let's create one. Okay.
So we've taken our pulse, haven't we? You know, we haven't heard so much from Luke on that. We've heard from Jeff on what's going on. Let's be self-aware of what our needs are. And sort of thinking about how we can expand on some of the things we are doing well at the moment. So Jeff's taking a shower every day. He's like, I'm participating. I'm doing those things to look after myself. But one of the main things that I guess how well this works for you is how well you ritualize it. And that's the thing that, you know, with self-care, if it's not a habit, if it's not something that we do and we're relying on feeling motivated to do it, that's not always going to work. The reason why we need self-care is because we don't feel motivated in life, you know, so it's one of those sort of ritualistic behaviors that we sort of incorporate into the everyday. We set reminders, we have something written down, like just a post-it note up on your computer screen, you know, take a stretch every hour, Jeff, like, you know, that's good for you. It's good for your body to move. So, you know, it's those kind of things that we sort of do. In terms of a self-care toolkit,
so what are they first? What is a self-care toolkit?
So I would say it's like it's like a physical box or something of that kind, right? So this is not like a mindset thing. This is like a physical kind of a toolkit that you can draw on. Now mine, if I'll give you an example, mine has items in there like I have sometimes tea or chocolate. One time wine made its way in there. You know,
one time.
Maybe 3. But, you know, sometimes it can be a little list of things that you've written when you've felt in a really positive, good mindset about yourself. Sit down and write 10 things that you think are fabulous about yourself and pop it in that toolkit. Pop it in there. So when you're feeling shit, you go to that toolkit and you're like, those are the awesome things about me. You know, even if it's just 3, just pop it down when you're feeling good. Every now and then we do feel good. Just 3, Jeff, just 3. If we just get a couple down.
Start small, girl.
Yeah, I mean, you could put some creams in there. Some people use crystals and things, you know, and that kind of healing. a list of songs that are like amazing, that really resonate with you and give you that kind of awesome feeling like I'm on top of the world. Sometimes some of this just doesn't resonate though.
So it's kind of like items that induce a positive feeling in yourself.
Yeah.
Whether,
and I think it's important to say, like, on our pursuit of happiness, it's not just all about pleasure as well. You know, we also have purpose in there, like why do we do things? What's the purpose of something? So that's really important to keep in mind as well. And passion. You know, these are the things that we want to foster in happiness. So, you know, when we're aiming for what happy is, we think about our passion and purpose and pleasure. So all of those things, which, create that kind of happiness feeling. But if I were to ask you guys, might start with Luke, what would be in your toolkit? Say this afternoon you have a bit of a crappy day at work and you've come home, what would it be in there that would cheer you up?
All right, so I'm going to avoid putting alcohol in there because that's an easy one to go to.
Wise choice.
Because, you know, that could become problematic very quickly. You know, it's happening to Becky on the corners right now. Girl, God love you. I think, look, I would like to put a book in there, like something I read on Kindle now, so I actually don't read books anymore, but actually I think a physical book would be good because you actually tune out. Reading something on Kindle and someone messages you on Facebook, you read it, so you're constantly not tuning out. So something like a book. I think some relaxation music too. I was doing a lot of listening to what's the word, you know, like meditations at one point. I actually got right in. Yeah, I got right into that for a little while. And I thought, this isn't me. Like, this is so stupid. But when I did it became a ritual. It was how I fell asleep.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, then my child got older and constantly wants to be in my bed and in my area. So I just stopped. It just was something I just stopped because I was like, oh, well.
Here we come back to boundaries again, don't we?
We do. Let's talk about boundaries, Sandy.
No, stay on your toolkit. It's all sounding really good so far.
Okay, so what else I'd put music. I love music. Music's something that I like to tune out to. You know, like eons ago, I used to love performing and singing, so I guess I have a real strong connection with music. But that's something important I would like to include. And then also, maybe... look, I like to keep photographs. Photographs to me are very important. I was going to ask
that. Do you have like a photograph of you and maybe Buffy, or, you know, something?
Really... I do. Look, I've got her on my desk right now. Like, that's the thing. It's just little things that like remind you.
Yeah, absolutely.
There she is in my ring light. Like, let's get her right in. You know, like just, and family, you know. Yeah. I like to keep things from family and just have it either written down or, you know, stuff that I treasured for myself, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything to other people.
And that's the thing.
I actually do have a treasure. Actually, speaking of the self-care toolkit, though, I do have a box up here that I put every single card I get, every single like things from people. I will just keep in there, and my hope is like, you know, when I'm old, I'll just give it to Buffy and be like, you know, these are all the people that had
but what about now,
meant something in my life.
What about now when, you know, like, especially when we feel like we're quite alone?
I've never looked in it. I've just
Why don't you one day
pop
it out, have a look, and look at all the people who've thought of you? You know, like, it's very grounding. It's nice to actually reflect back on.
But I guess then it comes down to that anxiety of, like, you know, sometimes we avoid wanting to feel stuff too, don't we? I don't want to, you know, I do tend to avoid emotion. I don't know why that is about me, but I don't want to get too sentimental or too sad by looking at something. It wouldn't even be sad. It would be like a nice sad. But, you know, I do tend to avoid that. I'm very good at avoiding, you know, getting too deep with things.
And yeah, I think the self-care toolkit does require a little bit of that too, doesn't it?
It doesn't. I guess it requires insight and also the want to be raw So that's
Yeah.
probably something I need to work on too. It's like, you know.
You probably have that covered, honey.
Don't unload too much, Jeff. Let's
What
get
was-
into your self-care toolkit, bitch. Come
Um,
on.
I'm so bad at this stuff. Like, I was in therapy for 3 years, and she's like, and you were like, do the 10 things. She's like, do 10 things positive about you. I got to 3. I'm like, I don't know.
Start small.
Yeah.
Start
So
small.
the first thing would be Miss Katie Underwood's Mantra
Oh,
Dreaming.
God.
You
You're
can
kidding,
get
Katie.
on iTunes right now, or you can order a hard copy of your CD. Just go to our website and find Katie's page, and you can order that. So
Jeffrey.
that's number 1.
That's a great one.
I don't know, right? Like, I think a pile of money would be great. Just
to see it.
yeah, because for me, it's a security issue, right? It's not really about the money. It's not having material things, but it's knowing that the kids are okay. I'm okay. You know, it was really scary going through the divorce and walking away from that career. I didn't know how the hell I was going to do everything.
Yeah.
So for me, like, that is something. And being able to travel makes me happy.
I love this one, Jeff, this symbol of money and what it means for you. So many people have such a sort of dirty association with it. But, you know, I'm hearing you that what that symbolizes for you, it's freedom. It's security. It's something, it's an abundance. You know, it's something that's really important to you. And it's such a great one to remind you. It's like, I'm okay. You know,
it's not about having the mega mansion anymore or anything like that, but it's about security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, because it's something I've always looked for and always like felt lacking in, you know?
I think sometimes too, Jeff, like we sort of don't see the positives that we've achieved well as a parent. Like, you know, that is something that I'm anxious about, is providing security for, you know, little people. And I have done that. Like, you know, I've bought a house, you've bought a house. You know, there's enough room for the people that need to live in it, all of that kind of stuff, putting money into the house all the time. I don't, you know, it never feels rewarding because it feels like, oh, I need to do this and there's still so much more to do. I don't know if that's the mindset you're in. That's always what I'm in. I'm like, okay, I've got to do this next, this next, this next, this next. And it doesn't sort of end.
Right.
It becomes...
I get to the point where I then burn out. And then it's like, okay, I'm tuning out the world. The kids and I are going to jump into bed together and we're going to watch movies all day because I just cannot do people. I don't care what happens. Like, I have to.
It's draining. It's draining. People is draining. And you do need that time to recharge. That's you putting your charger in, Jeff, and closing some apps down and having that time. And it's totally okay.
Katie Underwood, what would you put in your self-care kit?
I would put a box of Lindt chocolate balls.
Amen, girl. Amen.
Yeah. That would be the first thing I would pull out of my self-care kit. And then maybe a nice fresh punnet of strawberries. And then probably a binge watch session of my favorite show on Netflix, whatever that might be. And yeah, I don't know, food, rest, a bath, a massage, possibly in that order, not necessarily.
Just throw them all in, however it comes.
Throw them all in. That's what I would do. And look, I mean, there are other things, depending what sort of self-care I need. You know, if it's just rest, or maybe it's more about mental health support. So one of my support measures in place, I have a therapist that I see when I need to, that I consider that to be part of my self-care. And
absolutely.
Even just simple things like journaling, you know, when I'm having a feeling and just pulling out my diary, which is in, you know, my bedside table, and just writing as many pages as I need to write and just getting whatever is in my head out of my head. And that allows me to sort of find my peace. Obviously, other things like listening to music and meditation, but, you know, journaling is good.
I was going to say, it's a good point you brought up, though, about, you know, speaking to someone a lot of people think that if you go and see someone to speak to, there's this stigma attached to it, like there's something wrong with you. But I kind of feel it's like almost prophylactic, right? Like you're making sure that things are cool and you're staying on top of everything. I think that's something that needs to change, especially in Australian culture. I know in the US it's a little bit more.
I wouldn't say it's that much better, you know. Every time the gun argument comes up, Jeff brings up mental health. There's a huge stigma, and it's something we fight all the time. You know, I tell my clients all the time, it doesn't matter what the nuns told you at school. You don't have to live in pain, you know. And,
now, Miss Vera, what
yes.
would you be placing in your self-care kit?
Well, something that didn't show my hair getting all yucky. It's very wet and I'm very frizzy. I would definitely have books and music. They're my go-to escapes when the world's getting a little stressful. You know, probably some binge watching material, but I couldn't get through a day without books and music.
Like we need it.
I think too, like maybe I'd have like an empty box, you know, that just signifies being alone. I like alone time. I like just being in quiet by myself. And it doesn't happen very often.
What are the kinds of things that you do alone? I don't know if I should open that box, but
No, it's not even, it's just being able to like listen, like Luke, music's a big thing for me too. My grandmother was a singer, you know, so it was always in our house, but getting to like just kind of be in the moment and listen to music, take it in, and not have a child run, you know what I mean? Like it's just that time for you to decompress or to read a book, you know. I love reading. I try to either, you know, that at night, or I'll put my headphones in and listen to music after the kids go to sleep. That is stuff that's really important to me.
And do you feel good afterwards? Do you actually feel good?
Yeah,
and that's the thing.
Yeah.
We don't want to, do we? We're like, I couldn't be bothered. I'm too tired. I'm too stressed. And, you know, it's like, all right, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to bite the bullet and do it because I know that I feel good after. And then you feel good and you're like, damn, it wasn't that hard. But, you know, it's just getting that, you know, feeling or sense that we need the motivation when it's just that action part, isn't it? It's like, I'm just going to get in and do it. And the more that we have these rituals, the more that we weave them into our everyday life, the more likely that we are to feel better. I mean, the evidence base shows us that this decreases stress and anxiety and depression. And other comorbidities like hypertension and strokes, like, you know, actually practicing self-care and weaving this into our everyday life is so, so important.
All those things you just said made me feel attacked.
He's seen. He's seen him.
Is she like here somewhere? She's been watching me.
But I guess what you're saying, though, Sandy, is the important thing is to actually start doing little things to build.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's the part of things.
Background. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, and working with the body, I believe in the wisdom of the body. And just a small thing that you can do is, you know, start with your body, start where you're at. Like, say if you're sitting in a chair and you're like, I just couldn't be asked, hopping up, I don't want to do anything. Just move your legs a little bit in the chair, move your hips, do it right now. You'll feel there's energy happening in your body. Yeah. Just like move it. and you feel that movement, and you can start getting yourself motivated in those small ways. I don't even want to know what this inside joke is. What's going on?
I don't even know why he's laughing at me either.
You just put your leg up, and I'm thinking about your box, and I'm thinking about the lube that would be in there, the gallon jug.
Oh, Lordy.
That's disgusting. I would never put something like that in my box. Thank you. My box for healing, okay? And for, you know, self-caring.
You know, the one thing I want to say, though, about self-care, and I've just thought about this weirdly from this strange thing that just happened there.
That's how the show rolls, girl.
I know, it's just come to my mind that, you know, when we need to think about why we use self-care as well. And I mean, coming from a background working in domestic violence and seeing victims go through just the most extreme gaslighting and being told that they need to take better care of themselves by the perpetrator, by services around them as well that are supposed to be supporting them. And I can see that it's being used as a buffer to have this person survive and thrive in violence. And I think that that's something that I really wanted to point out, that when you're taking your pulse, and if you're doing self-care so that you can help someone else's existence more so than your own, children usually excluded here unless there's some family violence situation, you really need to consider that. And I would highly recommend some professional sort of assistance with it, because that's probably a scenario. Self-care is great and all, but we do have to work out what's our purpose.
I'm going to say, is there maladaptive stuff in self-care as well that people obviously, I mean, we joked earlier about alcohol, but that's one that advice that people can cling to.
Yeah.
Drug taking in the more extreme circumstances, but also, like
Smoking
in.
Yes.
Staying in.
Well, some of these things it's in moderation, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that it's something just to be mindful of. Why are we doing self-care? What am I doing? Is this for me? Is this for my well-being? So, and I mean, the thing is, though, we do need to survive and thrive during adversity as well. So, I mean, if that is going on, we do need to look after ourselves, but it's not always the onus is on us. If things in our system aren't working, and sometimes it's not our fault. So that's something just to be, I think, mindful of. I don't know why the leg in the earth made me think of that, but it's just where I went.
I elicit lots of things in people, I guess.
Luke's dating history. Like, if they're a narcissist, it's his style. You admitted it.
That's it. I only like to get in the water if there's a shark, mate, and I've got a little cut in me. We joke, but,
I feel like I need to go to therapy with Sandy. I think I need to start weekly meetings with her.
Can you imagine if we did like a live therapy, Jeff?
I would
the new Dr. Phil.
I would do it as a pre-record so that we could edit anything else.
Would edit the shit out and just
his inevitable breakdown that he'll have during it.
Oh goodness!
Well, Sandy, thank you so much for joining us. It was a really great conversation. And,
this is really important in my field of practice. I mean, as I said, we're notoriously bad at using this ourselves, but it is something once you have those rituals in place and, every day you're just practicing it more and more and the rewards pay off. Absolutely, it pays off. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do a challenge now, Jeff, okay? By the next live show, we're going to have our toolkit prepared. We're going to show it when we've got it done, and we're also going to have a list of things that we're doing to self-care as well.
I better go hit the ATM.
Yeah.
Put that cash out and have it just big wads.
I always, I swear, and I keep saying I'm going to do it and I haven't done it. I've always wanted to get just like 10,000 in ones and then like throw it on the bed and roll around
roll in it.
Naked. Yeah. Oh.
Get the feel.
I can see
That's
it's a very Kirstie Alley thing to do there, I think. I could just see her always doing that. But she would have a burger too. That's her self-care.
I mean, food's all right too. You can have some food items in there. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I do want to extend the challenge. So I've worked with clients in the past where we don't just have one that we have at home. We have self-care toolkits that we take in the car. So there's one special one for the car. What if you have a friend who's having like a little meltdown? You're like, it's all right. I got it. I got you. Like, let's go to my car. I've got a kit.
Some tissues, some Bacardi. You're going to be okay, girl.
Or we have one at the workplace, because these places all need different types of self-care, don't they? But that could be like self-care part 5, That could be another new challenge, or one that you develop with your kids.
So that's our challenge. So we're going to do our self-care kits. Oh, should we do one for the kids too?
That would be really cool.
Do that? A self-care kit for the kid. Oh my gosh, there's going to be books in there. I'm going to have to read them. I don't even want to go down that path.
Oh, honey, you just get the tablet and they read them for you now.
Yeah, then it turns them into like zombies. They just tune out. They're just like, the screen's there. Like, oh my gosh.
You can put the book on the TV, get the YouTube thing, and you can read the kids love it.
Okay, all right, we'll go for that. That's parenting shorts. That's our self-care, right?
Yes, and you should use technology.
Life
absolutely. We're the information age right now. Everything's online. Like if you want meditation, you want some kind of yoga, all of those kind of things, use it. You want to do breathing techniques, ask your Apple Watch. You know, like that's how I do mine. I get my breathing down.
If you want Katie Underwood CD, you just got to look up Mantra Healing on iTunes.
Is she on Spotify?
Yes, she is.
I think she is.
I'm hitting her up. That's it. I'm including her in my toolkit.
There you go. Katie Underwood's gone in everyone's toolkit tonight, girls.
Okay, so we'll just start with 3 and 4 because 1 and 2 is not here.
It is. Oh my God.
Okay, so expressing gratitude. So just as it's beneficial to keep track of what we've done, it's also good to notice what we have. Keep a journal by your bed. There you go, Katie. And note the things that you feel lucky to have. Everything from clean sheets to a good friend is worth noting. Well, I guess that's exactly just what we've just chatted about.
Yeah.
And appreciating things, and and gift your inner child. What were some of your favorite things when you were little? Did you love sidewalk chalk, picking wildflowers, eating marshmallows? Treat your inner child to a little present, the warm feelings to wash over you. The inner child thing sort of comes up a lot in a lot of different.
There's 1 and 2.
There's 1 and 2. We'll get 1 and 2. Jeff found it. The inner child stuff comes up a lot in different therapies, and I think, I mean, I guess that's where all problems start, right? Is shit that happens to you when you're a kid. And we sort of have to really nurture that vulnerable part of ourselves, that child that we still all are inside. I just find it's a recurring theme. I'm not sure, like, Vera, do you guys really go into that in your line of work?
That's nothing that I've gone into. I'm sure that other therapists at the clinic have probably done that. But, you know, I mean, if you're exploring options, you know, just playing. Sometimes just playing is a lot of fun, you know. Play a game. Play with a game with your kids, or play a game with your friends, you know.
I actually, when I went to an energy specialist after the suicide of my grandparents, because I didn't know what to do. And one of my friends kept suggesting it, and I really was making fun of it. Like, what you gonna do? Bang a gong and wave her magic rock, right? Like, what? But at the point, I was just like, all right, let's go. I went, and like one of the things she did was we went back to like this childhood, and she talked about taking that 8-year-old self and giving him a hug and saying it's okay and doing these things. And it was the most intense experience I think I've ever had. But after that, I was like, okay, this works, because it put to bed all of the things that I had going on about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing.
I think it's really interesting that, you know, there might be aspects of our childhood that we can look back on fondly, but I think for a lot of us, there were some huge gaps in what we were given compared to what we need as individuals.
Yeah.
Because there there just wasn't as much information really for our, you know, parents on how to do what they did. They did the best they could. So I think for us, it's that going back and kind of reparenting ourselves in the way that we need. And healing some of those wounds, because, you know, that's not going to happen from our actual parents. For some people, their parents are long gone. You know, that opportunity is over. But there's always that opportunity for us to continue to reparent and nurture that in ourselves. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess, and it's also just accepting that, you know, no one's perfect. No one's had the perfect upbringing. No one's had the perfect parents. Like, everyone's flawed, and that's okay. Like, I think there's a stigma around all of that too, where we sort of beat ourselves up a little bit through life, and we shouldn't do that, you know, because we're all doing the best we can, right?
We're all fucked up messes.
In our own special way. Yeah.
Speaking of messes, Jeff, where is that 1 and 2?
I got it. You blind bat.
Okay, pop it up for me,
Maybe
please,
if you turned your head forward, worked on that ring light a little bit.
Okay, so eat healthily and mindfully. This is something I've failed at in the last couple of years. Like, I've gotten so fat. I've put on 10 kilos from working shift work. I'll be honest. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't care. And I eat a lot of shit. I eat easy food because I'm tired all the time, because I work crazy hours. So whenever I'm home, I'm just like, do I really want to spend an hour cooking? No. And it
He
doesn't
loves.
help that I have a child that won't eat anything because she's just decided that she's a vegetarian, even though she doesn't know what that is. And she's very fussy. So the things that I prepare for her are limited, and it's not really stuff that I want to eat. So, yeah, I've definitely fell off the wagon and eat a lot of bad food. And I know that that does contribute to your mind, like your healthy mind as well. Like it's, if body's going to crap, then your mind is too.
Drinking is horrible for, I think, everybody's mental health, right? Like, I know the day after having a bunch of booze, mentally I feel like crap. I'm
But it's
depressed,
a terrible cycle though too, isn't it?
anxiety.
Like a lot of people, like, yeah, if you're going out to something, a couple of I look what I would do, especially when I used to party. I would have drinks to not be socially anxious. And so then, then yeah, I'd be a big mouth and be the life of the party. But the next day, I'd just be like, my God, I would rather be dead right now.
Well, I think
And
that's the conflicting thing about alcohol is on the first few drinks, you think it makes you more excitable, more outgoing, and kind of does. But the fact is, on a chemical level, alcohol is a depressant, so over time, it's only going to make things worse and not better. And but it's such an easy trap to fall for because everyone's out there drinking, and while you're out and drunk, everyone seems happy. So it's easy to mistake that, alcohol equals happiness, but often that's not the case.
And it does keep you from dealing with the pain.
Yeah.
If you self-medicate and you just bury the pain and you're not embracing it and forgiving and moving on.
definitely, it numbs stuff, and it's an escape, right? It's like it's like shit food. Alcohol is definitely an escape because it begins by taking the edge off, but then, as you were saying, Katie, I think the more people drink, especially, and I completely understand it, even from a health professional perspective, it takes a hold of people very easily, and then it becomes very detrimental very quickly. And you can see it just in health outcomes too. A lot of people that I've nursed have got, young dementia, things like that, all brought on from abuse of alcohol.
Absolutely.
Look, I don't think it's just alcohol, right? After all that stuff happened, I went on prescribed medication. And after a couple of years, it helped me get through what I needed it to. But then I'm like, I feel numb. I don't feel anything. I don't get happy. I don't get sad. Like,
some people get addicted to that numbness and don't want to feel happy or sad.
Here was the thing.
Want to live there.
I was tripping balls. Like, I'm going to therapy every week, and I'm like, look, I don't feel normal anymore. Like, so-and-so just died, and I don't care. Like, I don't feel anything. Like, this can't be good either. Because I'm not dealing with anything. Like, I'm in a loop of shit. So once I finally got off it, it'll be a year this summer. It's still there. Like, it's taking a very long time for it to clear out of my system.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd maybe gotten off sooner and been like, okay, time to deal with your shit, big boy. Get your panties up. Let's do this. Because it's rough. Like, and I think people don't.
Well, it's easy to become dependent on something, isn't it? Very
well, and the
easy.
doctors don't tell you that, okay, yeah, you're supposed to be on this for like 18 months or whatever time frame it was, and then you really should be getting off it. Like, nobody said that to me. Nobody said that there could be lasting effects the longer I'm on it. And I'm not discouraging anybody. I think medication is great. I would probably not have survived without it. But at the same time, I wish they would have said, you do at some point have to deal with the reasons why you're on it.
Well, I think there should be more encouragement or more information around when doctors prescribe these medications. And like you, I'm pro meds when needed, but that should be combined with a talking therapy program.
Yeah.
That is the adjunct to, okay, take the meds so that you can function, But alongside that, you get together with a psychologist or a counselor or a psychotherapist and actually work through stuff. And as you say, and then transition to not being dependent on the medication, because medication will only ever help you with the symptoms. I mean, obviously, in some cases, some people do need to be medicated, and that's a different
for their whole life.
conversation.
Yeah, totally.
And that's a different bag. But for people that are just kind of dealing with stuff that's coming up that they need help with, then I think, it's imperative to have that talking therapy in place and not just go, okay, here, take some pills and good luck and see you in 5 years. That's
work through it, clean the shit out of the cupboard. Right.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people do fall through the cracks. I mean, I've had friends that were prescribed, antidepressants, and 8 years later they're still on them, going, now I don't know how to function without being on them. And I still haven't really, dug into why I feel this way. And it's sad that a lot of people seem to fall through the cracks in that system.
Yeah.
Do you know anything in Australia? Are they doing any trials with ketamine? Like, I was just reading a fascinating study about over here, where it's like, a party drug, right? Like, that people now, like, mushrooms, any kind of psychedelic drugs. They're doing a lot of studies with treating people in a doctor setting, and then part of it is it's not really regulated, but they're saying like talk therapy has to go on with this, and it can actually have a much better effect than prescribed medication. And I think it's fascinating.
I think the stigma around studying things like hallucinogens and MDMAs is starting to lift off, but I think we're a long way off the average person accessing that sort of treatment. I think a lot more research needs to be done. And again, it's not about, okay, we're going to treat you with psilocybin, give you some mushrooms, send you home and wish you luck. It's something, from what I understand, it's like any medical appointment, you would take whatever substance they've prescribed and then be in the room with your therapist who will then guide you through the process of navigating your thought patterns. I mean, I've read a lot on it in the sense that apparently it's highly effective for people with PTSD to really overcome past traumas and to re-experience those things in a less traumatic way. So I think there's huge potential for that, and I hope that continues. I think there's a lot more scope for positive outcomes rather than the other sorts of medications that perhaps are not as effective in actually helping people get through stuff.
And like this, there's not really tons of long-term effects, because you're taking small doses in a doctor setting. Like, you have to sit there with them. And this is not like taking a prescribed drug that then you have to go on 2 other drugs to counteract all of the side effects.
Well,
so I think it's interesting.
It is interesting. There were several clients in our organization who went on the ketamine, but it's been a rough go. There's only 2 that have stayed with it, and so I think there's more research to be done on ketamine.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was interesting you brought up PTSD, Katie. I guess therapies that also help those with PTSD is also, once again, it's like going back to that inner child and things like that as well, nurturing yourself. I can't find with PTSD, it's one of the bigger things in our society that's not really spoken about, and a lot of people have it, and so then they are going on, becoming addicted to prescription meds, drinking too much, things like that, and it's not. I don't think it's clear on how people can actually deal with stuff like that. I think it is a lot of therapy, and once again, there's a stigma there with therapy, like, oh, there's something wrong with you, you need to see a therapist.
PTSD's just explode. I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go. I was just going to say, I think that the thing with PTSD is that the origins of that, or the causes of that, there's such huge variation and diversity in it that therefore the answer is going to be very unique and very customized. But please go ahead, Vera.
I just think that PTSD has exploded because we have a digital age where people are self-isolated and they don't have any supports. And I think that we have endless wars, we have returning soldiers, we have people experiencing trauma. I mean, just look at the Chauvin trial. All of those witnesses were in some form of PTSD from having watched that murder. You know, I mean, it's just, and those of us who watched it around the world have some level of PTSD from seeing it. You know, it's just the digital age bombards us with these images, and we don't have tools to process them. Like, we don't have extended families, and we don't have extended communities. We have a digital world that is very sterile, you know?
Well, that's why self-care is so important.
Absolutely. That's why we're here talking about it today.
Yeah. And look, I think sometimes one of the answers to self-care is, you know, when you're referring to this over bombardment of media and information, I think probably one of the biggest tips to self-care in our modern age is switching off, turning the phone off, turning the news off.
Yes.
I remember here in Australia when we were at the height of, you know, about a year ago when COVID was picking up, and I was watching the news. It's constantly, it seemed, for months. And then it hit a point where things started to level out, and I had to give myself permission to switch the news off and stop watching every day, stop tuning in every hour. And not surprisingly, my anxiety levels dropped significantly because I wasn't constantly putting myself on this, oh, what's happening now? What's coming out now? Who's being elected now? Who's got COVID now? You know, this feeling that we need to know what's going on everywhere all the time is not good for us if you are experiencing that heightened level of anxiety and even, you know, to the extreme PTSD. You know, sometimes I think the solution is switch off. We don't have to know everything, you know, everywhere. It's not that important.
Well, exactly. What's it going to change? Like, is it going to make the world better that you know that COVID has this so many people infected and blah, blah, blah? Like, yeah, it's good to be aware.
Sadie, thanks so much. I know you've got to be somewhere.
They're like, oh, we know what you're doing. No, bitch. I don't have time for that. That thing doesn't work.